Hi, I'm just going to give a bit of an appetizer for what we're going to be looking at, working on at our event. We're very lucky to have Dennis from Leica, who's going to be demonstrating a new device that I've been involved in somewhat, and very excited about this device. It's a new measuring device. This is going to be the way forward for anybody that's probably looking to start out with digital. But I'm just going to bring a few things onto my screen and show you. So we are going to be working on this model that I've made up. Basically, we've made some frameworks up on this model, and they're going to be installed, and Dennis is going to measure around the frameworks, and also Dave Elliott and Bjorn Hallier will be using it to demonstrate some of their techniques. But I've used definitions that we've written with Grasshopper to actually generate the canvas for the spray hood and bimini on here. The reason I've done that is it gives me the overall appearance of how it's going to look, and I can generate we can generate the frameworks from those files. So what you're seeing here has been generated parametrically. And I'm going to run through a few separate files. So we have a spray and bimini there, and what I've also done is produced a cockpit enclosure. So just need to open that file, 2 seconds. So here we've produced a spray hood and cockpit enclosure, what you Americans, I believe probably in Australia, call a dodger. We call this a spray hood. And again, that's been generated, and we've added this to the scan data, so that we've got here to produce this model. And then what I've also done is just to show what we can do parametrically. This is mapped over the framework. So I've written software basically that we can do what we would call a recover. So in terms of the frameworks already being on the boat, or the canvas work being already on the boat, we will plot these curves and have techniques to do this. And but we're going to work with the point data that will be acquired with the Leica, and show you how you can get to this stage. We'll also be looking at frame design on the in the last session with me, and I'll show you how we basically have a one-step design process. So we don't take frameworks to the boat to measure. It's all done in a one-step process, which I've taught to various people around the world via paid consultation. This one here, this is generated actually without any framework. So I actually use this to generate the framework profiles, and from this we generate the frame patterns. So if I open up this file here, so we have the patterns for the spray hood frame, the cockpit enclosure frame, and we did similar for the bimini. So let me close that down. So this was our one-step process. This is generated without bending any framework. The canvas can be machined up before the framework is even bent. So again, you could see there's 2 different designs of spray hood here anyway. If you look at the window profiles, the dimensions are different. What I have done on this one is I've actually scaled this up because the model is smaller than proper size. I've scaled the model up on this one just to give a better reflection of size. So I can turn the canvas off on this model if I want to. Let's just make another layer. So if we turn the canvas off, we can see the seams and the main sort of construction here. I can also turn that off, and this is generated in our software by these points. Basically, where I put the points, that's where the framework will be generated to. So if I move the points, when I've got the software open and live, it will actually generate the framework to those points. So if a customer was to come in and say, I want that 50 mil higher, if I was to lift these points up 50 mil, I would actually bring this up 50 mil higher. So I'm just going to close that again, and we can have a look at that. But like I say, we're going to have a look at this. Is quite advanced software is ours. We're going to look at the manual processes to enable you to do this and to clean up the data and work with it in terms of best practice. There's also an application called Shape Diver that we use extensively. I've used, and with this you can write software that has a easier interface than Grasshopper. So what we're not doing is presenting to the person a complex interface. And we have this embedded in some of our websites. So this is just generic to show something on the screen. It will change as I add data. But with this, we can put a job name. We can enter an email. Okay, and that will become apparent later. We can specify the fabric width, the thickness of the cushions, the color. Okay, and we can add tabs to the cushions, and we have two ways of inputting shapes. So if the shapes are like this, you can draw them as a DXF, and you just upload the file, and the only pre-requirement is that the zip edge is facing upwards. And there's some text on here that tells you and gives you an idea. So maximum 15 cushions in total. Add tabs if required. Select correct foam thickness. Run again if you need different thicknesses for seats and backs. But basically that's giving you the information that just helping you configure this correctly. So this will work for shapes by uploading a DXF file, and we just go to where that file will be loaded. Or we can enter in sizes, and we do it in a Rhino format, which will be 500 and then a comma as a delimiter or separator. So 500 width by 400 depth, and then we can put the number of cushions, and we click the apply button, and all being well, this should might take a little bit of time, but if it doesn't work, it's because I need to reconfigure some of this for Rhino 8. Obviously, it's always a problem when they update the software. Okay, so the only issue with being online is it has to compute within a certain time. But we have an in-house version of this as well, so maybe I can open that up and just show you what happens with that. 2 seconds. So I know a lot of people have messed around with Grasshopper. So this will be the Grasshopper version. The reason the boat is drawn there is it's the template that I've got on this machine, and it helps us give the correct orientation to a model. So when we line the model up, that will just give us an interpretation of the model. I can turn that off for a second. Okay, so with Grasshopper, I can specify the size of the cushions, all my pricing and all that set out here. So it will compute pricing, but what it will also do, it makes it easy for me to adjust pricing if I need to, so I can set hourly rate, but it will work out the size of the amount of foam required and the linear length of material that's required. So that will all be computed. So I can draw shapes. I'm going to move this over here. But there's a couple of ways that I can do this. If I draw shapes that might represent cushions, so I can either do it by uploading a DXF, or I can draw live and prerequisite is that the zip is at the top edge. This could be curved. So you can see what's happening here. All the parts are labelled. So cushion A bottom, cushion A top, cushion C bottom, C top. If I add tabs, it will add the tabs. These are the borders and the zip borders, all labelled up correctly. The piping we nest separately because that's an option on the cushions. It generates the pricing based on what I've set up, and it generates the foam patterns as well, which are larger than the actual cushion. So that they're all generated. These are basically representations of the cushions. Okay, and we can add piping if we wanted to. It's all options that can be configured. So if I go down to the options, so we can add tabs, and I'll get tab marks. They're annotated for where the zip runs, so I can add tabs. So I can add tabs at the front, or the front and the back. You can see the markers going for the tabs. The only thing, if you've got a zip on a cushion, is that you need to, curve, is you need to let it know where you want the zip to run to. And all we have to do is put a couple of points, and that will show it where we want the zip to run to. What else can we adjust on here? So like I say, we can add piping if we want to. We can nest and price. So it's nested it, it's priced it. The online version will actually give a PDF layout for the customer with pricing and a representation of the cushions. Most people are surprised how much fabric is actually taken. What else do I want to show you? Probably Bimini design. Let's have a. That probably won't be a bad idea. So I'm going to open. So here's a model pre-scanning. So this is generated. So it's going to revert and get rid of that grasshopper. This is generated with point data from a ProLiner, because I got very quick at drawing up services, and this is what I used to do. And we can do the same with the data from the Leica, which is going to be much easier to use because we can get all the areas out of line of sight. Why did we generate these areas? Again, because we wanted full flexibility over the design of the spray hood. So rather than plotting where we expected it to go, if this customer had said that they wanted the sprayer to go over this wider combing, we could have done that. It finishes not full width because there's a line here that goes to the sheet that goes to the winch. But we have complete flexibility because we're not measuring around the framework. I can open up Grasshopper here, and because I need to open up the correct file, so it won't be a second. Need to download a few bits and pieces. Come on. Okay. Seem to have lost internet coverage at the moment, but right, this should draw me a Bimini based on the points that I've got, and similar routine for sprays and cockpit enclosures. So yeah, it will take a little while to actually draw this and generate it, but then you're doing hours of work in minutes. So let's bring out the interface to the software. So this gives me all the geometry. You can see there that we've already got a Bimini. Let me move this over here. So this is the interface. and we've rewritten rewritten this massively in terms of making it much easier to use. There's a lot of configuration that's available to the user, so that does mean there's a lot to, in terms of controls. But basically, these points, once they're picked, I've already picked them. So aft bar midpoint, forward bar midpoint, that gives us the span. We can override it. We specify the area where we want the foot to mount. We pick a point which needs to be just forward of that guideline. We pick a point for a strap to go for the bimini. But basically, once we've got those bits picked, and we can add side shade panels if we want to. Once we've got those bits picked, we can start to configure the bimini. So we can change the radius, we can change the shape of the bimini. It's automatically gone to a 4-bar bimini because the span is too big. We got a warning on the screen. But if I took that down to 8, for example, we go back to a 3-bar bimini because we've got 3-bar bimini selected here. We can change the frame size because it does make a difference to the geometry and the frame pattern. So go back to 25mm. So this isn't quite finished yet in terms of the rewrite, but the whole idea is to make it much easier to use. We can add an aft extension if we want to. So that will extend the bimini back. The yellow guideline gives us an idea of the radius that we want to select on this to make it look comparative. We can add a dog leg into the framework. We can adjust windows. We can from a single window to twin windows. We can put windows in the front if we want to. It's all configurable. If we want to put a radius in those windows, practically everything that customers have asked us to do over the years, and when we're using the software, we've added in. So let's say you've asked me to do a 50 radius in the corners of the windows. Those windows are now radiused. If we want to make those windows wider, so the width, I can adjust the width, I can adjust the span, forward to aft, I can move them backwards and forwards so we can get the optimum position for the helm. So like I say, everything is configurable. So let's just take that. So the guidelines are the pocket stitching, so we make sure the windows appear inside that. Bit of intuition going on here, in as much as if you radius the corners of these windows, it will obviously automatically radius the corners of the other windows. So we can increase the span on the bimini, and we can take it back to a 4-bar if we want to. Let's make that 3-1. We can increase the height as well if we want to, just by moving points. Let's have a look at the side profile of the bimini. So if this was a motorboat bimini, we tend to put a radius on the, a lift in the top. So let me just show you that. So we can put a dog leg in here as well if we want to. But raise the centre bars. So what you'll see is this will put a lift in here, like a crown. We can change the edge of the bimini. So I've raised that edge upwards. Okay. Colours. We've got all the Sunbrella colours here. Let's go for something a little bit unusual. You can see the colour comes up there. Gobi, for instance, that changes the colour. And so I can get rid of that warning now by just accepting that it's a 4-bar bimini. Okay. What else would I like to show you? So you can see that when we change the bimini, it's actually flattened all the panels, added the seam allowance, match marks, reinforcing, tabling, generated the window blinds and the stowage pouch and the frame template. Okay, so like I said, this is still a little bit of a work in progress because we've looked to get a much simpler method of using the software, i.e. just picking these points. These are red, these points, until they're picked. There's a lot more configurability on the Bimini. So quite often we'll put a dog leg to get around the winches, but that can be a lot of work trying to work this out, and sometimes you'll do it without the dog leg and then you'll have to change back afterwards. So we can change that dog leg height, which is going to bring this down. Okay, so you can see practically anything that might be asked for. We can move the dog leg foot forward or backwards to try and get around winches. It's all typeable in here. We can change the radiuses of the framework. What else can we do? So when we get down here, we add a checklist. I should be checking these things, but I know it's done. The frame. We can, whatever we write in here, the frame size is filled in automatically, but if we look at the frame pattern, what I write here is annotated on the frame. So we've looked at flattening and that being done automatically. But what it will also do now is, this tick needs to be in there, it will nest it. So some people might have seen the online version that we have for Bimini. This is much more complex, a lot more configurability in here. So that last step is nested it and applied tool paths. Even the text is on these panels. Machining text. So that gives an idea how that works. What might we want to do next? So I'm going to close this down and I'm going to open so let's have a look at spraying and cockpit enclosure. Okay, so again, this will be generated with points. Let's get rid of that, it should be up there somewhere. So we're going to open Grasshopper, open up the relevant file. So I just need to download some scripts later, just because I'm working some add-ins, just because I'm working on a new PC. I haven't got this completely configured yet. Again, right, what this is doing now, it's opening up the script, and it will hopefully draw the Bimini. So draw the spray hood and cockpit enclosure, all being generated with these points. So it gives us a mannequin. We can actually adjust the height of the mannequin. So if somebody's taller, I'm going to really exaggerate this. So I've made the mannequin now 1900, so we can give the customer a representation. The sprayer is completely configurable because I can go to a free bar sprayer because I put an extra point in there. You'll see that will change shape. I can, by moving these points, if I was to drop those 50 mil, I'll just drop these 50mm. Hang on, right orientation. Let's go 50mm, and we will drop the spray hood 50mm. It will redraw. Okay, it's redrawn to those points that I've moved. I can change the colour as we did before. Okay, this is guidelines to give us a help with a rail. This just shows where the frame folds. So if we had a main sheet track or anything, we can make sure that it folds. Basically, it works out the foot position because we tell it where we want the frames to be and where we want it to fold and the area that's available for mounting. And if it's possible, it will do that. If we want to add a cockpit enclosure, so we can, like I say, configure this as well, but we can just add the cockpit enclosure. It will put another mannequin a little bit further back in the model. Okay, you can see we got the framework there first off to start with. But yeah, I think that's enough of an enticer. I'm going to stop there.